The colony floated quietly at the edge of the Zynar system, a small settlement built on a cold and silent planet. It wasn't much, just a handful of metal domes, a few mining towers, and long, shimmering pipes that carried energy from deep underground. The settlers there were simple beings. They weren't warriors, not explorers of danger, just workers and families trying to build a home far away from the crowded worlds of their species. For many years, they lived in peace, but peace has a way of ending without warning. It began one quiet rotation, when the early light of the twin suns touched the colony walls. The air felt wrong, too still, too heavy. In the communications tower, a young technician noticed strange signals flashing across the long-range scanner. At first, he thought it was interference and perhaps a solar flare or a dust storm. But as he adjusted the filters, his heart froze. There were ships approaching, many of them. He leaned closer, eyes wide. The signals weren't friendly. They were cold, sharp, organized. The kind of patterns that only one race was known for. The Corral, everyone in the galaxy knew that name. The Corral didn't trade, didn't talk, didn't negotiate. They conquered. And when they came, they left nothing behind but silence. The technician called out an alert. Sirens began to echo through the domes. Families rushed outside, staring at the sky as black shapes appeared in orbit. The colony's defense commander tried to reach command stations, shouting orders to prepare shields and weapons. But deep inside, everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. Their colony wasn't built for war. Within minutes, the Corral fleet filled the sky. Red lights streaked down like falling stars, striking the outer towers. The ground shook. Explosions burst through the mining fields and smoke curled into the air. The settlers ran for shelters, clutching each other, trying to escape the chaos. The once quiet planet became a battlefield in seconds. Inside the command dome, the communication officer, trembling but determined, worked on the long-range transmitter. The defense commander yelled for her to abandon the station, but she refused. "If we don't send a signal now," she said softly, "no one will ever know we existed." She began typing the emergency code, her hands shaking as the ground trembled under her feet. The system crackled. Static filled the room. The Corral jamming signal was strong, but she kept trying over and over. Finally, she found a small gap, a single channel that hadn't been blocked. She spoke into the microphone, voice breaking. "This is Outpost 9 of the Zynar system. We are under attack by Corral forces, requesting immediate help from anyone. Please, if you can hear this, we need reinforcements." The message repeated automatically, beaming out into the stars across endless light years. Outside, the colony burned. The commander ordered the remaining survivors into the underground shelters. The Corral landers touched down on the surface, dark insect-like machines spilling soldiers across the rocks. The colony's small security drones fought back but were quickly destroyed. The settlers could only watch as their home was torn apart. In the distance, the communication tower was struck. The officer's console burst with sparks. She was thrown back by the impact, but the system kept running, her last message still transmitting, carrying their hope far beyond their dying world. Across the galaxy, that signal drifted through the cold of space. It passed dead moons, empty stations, and drifting wrecks. It traveled through forgotten frequencies and broken relays, reaching systems no one had visited for centuries. Most receivers ignored it. Some civilizations were too far, others too afraid to interfere with the Corral. But somewhere, in a small sector near the Orion Belt, a place not known for its diplomacy or wealth, the message was picked up. The signal reached a listening station orbiting a blue and green planet, Earth. At first, the operators there thought it was a mistake. The voice was faint, speaking a language full of static and fear. They translated the message, slowly, piece by piece, until they understood what it meant. An alien colony was calling for help. A real alien colony, and they weren't just asking for assistance. They were begging for rescue from extinction. On Earth, the message reached the Global Defense Network. It was debated, argued, and analyzed. Many said it wasn't their problem. Humanity had enough troubles on its own. But there were others, people who looked at the message and saw something familiar. It wasn't just a call for help from another species. It was the sound of desperation, the kind humanity had known too well in its own history. The sound of people watching their home burn and praying that anyone would come, and so, The decision was made. A fleet was assembled, not a grand armada, not a polished army, but a group of ships that had seen too many battles in too many years. They weren't beautiful. They weren't fast, but they carried the one thing that mattered most: humans. The aliens on the colony had almost lost hope. Days passed and every hour felt heavier. The shelters grew colder. Supplies ran low. The survivors whispered in the dark, wondering if anyone had heard their call. The sky above them glowed red from the burning remains of their city. The corral ships still circled overhead, waiting to finish what they had started. Then one day the scanners picked up movement. A signal, faint but real. Something was coming. The defense commander looked up at the screen, confused. The readings didn't match any known ally fleets. The ships were smaller, their energy patterns strange. "What kind of vessels are those?" someone asked. No one had an answer. The unknown fleet entered the system, flying low, cutting through the debris. The corral immediately turned their weapons toward them, expecting another easy target. But the newcomers didn't flinch. Without warning, the small ships split into formation, diving straight toward the enemy. Bright bursts of light filled the sky. The first corral cruiser exploded before it even managed to lock its weapons. The colony shook again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was hope. The aliens ran outside their shelters, shielding their eyes as flames streaked across the atmosphere. Dozens of human ships roared overhead, engines burning like falling comets. They weren't elegant or shiny. They looked rough, patched, and full of scars. But there was something about them, something powerful. The corral ships began retreating to higher orbit, confused by the ferocity of the attack. In the middle of the chaos, one of the human ships landed near the colony. Its ramp opened and figures stepped out, wearing dark armor, faces hidden behind helmets scratched from old battles. The alien commander approached carefully, unsure if this new arrival was friend or foe. One of the humans removed his helmet, revealing tired eyes and a steady gaze. He looked around at the burning colony, then back at the frightened crowd. "You called for help," he said calmly. "We heard you." The alien commander blinked, speechless. "You came all this way." "For us," the human nodded. "That's what we do." Behind him, the rest of his team began unloading supplies, weapons, tools, food, medical kits. They moved quickly, like people who had done this 100 times before. There was no panic in their faces, only focus. The alien officer whispered to another, "They don't even seem afraid." And he was right. The humans didn't act like most beings facing the corral. They weren't terrified. They weren't desperate. They were calm, and almost too calm. They looked at the destruction not with sorrow but with determination, because they had seen worse. The air still smelled of smoke when the humans began unloading their equipment. The ground was littered with burned metal, shattered domes, and the remains of what once had been a peaceful home. The alien survivors stood in silence, watching these strange newcomers who had arrived out of nowhere, moving with the quiet confidence of people who had seen destruction before and refused to let it win. They expected the humans to panic, to hesitate at the sight of the wreckage, but they didn't. Instead, the humans started walking through the ruins as if they already had a plan. They scanned the ground, took notes, pointed toward the broken towers, and started talking to each other in quick, short sentences the aliens couldn't fully understand. But even without words, their tone carried meaning, focus, teamwork, and something else the aliens had almost forgotten: determination. One of the aliens, an engineer who had worked on the colony's power systems, stepped forward nervously and asked, "Do you understand what we need?" The human nearest to him looked up, his face streaked with dust and sweat, and gave a small nod. "Yeah," he said simply. "You need your home back." That single line carried more comfort than any promise could. The humans began by rebuilding the colony's defense grid. It had been torn apart during the first attack. Wires snapped, shields offline, turrets destroyed. Most of the aliens believed it would take months to fix. The humans didn't seem to agree. They worked through the day and deep into the night, using whatever they could find. They cut through twisted metal, pulled panels from crashed ships, and turned useless debris into armor plates. They didn't wait for instructions or permission. When something didn't fit, they made it fit. When tools broke, they made new ones. At first, the aliens didn't understand. They asked one of the humans why they were wasting energy on scraps when the corral could return at any time. The human just shrugged and said, "Where we come from, we don't throw away what can still fight." That sentence stuck with them. The next morning, when the two suns rose again, the colony looked different. The broken walls had been reinforced with metal plating. The old mining lasers had been repurposed into ground cannons. Even the fallen towers were used as barricades. The aliens were shocked by how much had changed overnight. They gathered around the humans who were eating quickly out of ration packs and asked how they could help. The human leader looked up and smiled slightly. "You already are," he said. "You're still here." The aliens didn't realize it then, but the humans were teaching them something far greater than building defenses. They were showing them how to keep going even when everything seemed lost. When one of the younger aliens grew frustrated after hours of digging trenches, a human beside him said quietly, "On our world, we dig graves deeper than this after storms. You'll get it done." There was no mockery in his voice, only shared understanding, the kind that came from people who had known loss. By the second night, the colony's scanners began working again. The humans had connected parts of their ship to power the damaged systems. For the first time since the attack, they could see beyond their planet's surface. The stars shimmered across the screen and everyone held their breath. One of the humans stared at the readings and frowned. "They'll be back soon," he said. The alien commander's body tensed. "How do you know?" The human didn't even look up. "Because bullies always come back when they think they can finish what they started." That single sentence was followed by silence. The humans didn't seem scared. They just kept working faster. They set up turrets on the ridges, mounted plasma rifles on old mining frames, and turned large cargo trucks into makeshift armored carriers. The aliens couldn't believe what they were seeing. To them, the humans looked reckless, but the results spoke for themselves. One alien whispered to another, "They build like they expect everything to break." The human nearby overheard and smiled. "That's because it usually does," he said softly, tightening a bolt. Despite the fear in the air, there were small moments that reminded everyone what they were fighting for. A group of alien children brought water and fruit to the humans. The soldiers accepted with quiet gratitude, sharing some of their own dried food in return. No words were needed, only the look of understanding between survivors. Later that night, as the cold winds swept across the camp, the human leader gathered his small team near a half-broken generator. The aliens listened from a distance. He spoke in a calm, steady voice. "We're not here to show off or prove anything. We're here because someone called for help and nobody else came. So we did. We'll hold this ground no matter what it takes." His words were not loud, but they carried far. The aliens who heard them felt a warmth in their chests they hadn't felt since before the attack. The warmth of hope. When dawn came again, the colony looked almost alive. The humans had even managed to bring back partial power to the outer domes. The soft hum of the generators filled the air. One alien scientist approached a human technician, amazed by how quickly they had adapted. "Your people must come from a world built for war," she said. The technician paused and looked up at the rising suns. "No," he replied quietly. "We come from a world built to kill us if we stop moving. We just learned to move faster." That made the alien fall silent. Later that day, the humans began training the surviving colonists. They showed them how to hold weapons, how to aim, and how to use their surroundings. They didn't bark orders or yell. They taught through patience and humor, correcting mistakes without judgment. "Your enemy isn't stronger," one human told them. "They're just used to winning. That's a habit we can break." Every alien who heard that line felt their fear fade a little more. By the end of the week, the colony was no longer just a group of survivors. It was a fortress. Not a perfect one, but strong enough to make the corral think twice before landing again. The humans had turned mining drills into heavy cannons, energy shields into reflectors, and supply crates into traps. The aliens began to call them the Deathworlders, not as an insult, but as a word of awe. They couldn't believe that such fragile-looking beings from such a dangerous planet could be so fearless. That night, while everyone rested, one alien sat near a fire, watching the humans check their weapons and quietly laugh together. He finally asked, "Why do you risk yourselves for people you don't even know?" The human looked at him, his expression unreadable in the flickering light. "Because once we needed help too, and nobody came." The alien didn't ask anything more. He just nodded slowly, understanding more in that moment than he ever had before. As the hours passed, the human leader walked to the edge of the camp and stared up at the stars. Somewhere out there the Corral were regrouping, preparing for another strike. He knew it, everyone did, but instead of fear, all he felt was readiness. He whispered quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Let them come. This time we're waiting." The alien commander approached him carefully. "Do you really think we can stop them?" The human smiled faintly. "We don't need to stop them. We just need to make them realize we're not easy prey." He looked out toward the horizon, where the faint outline of enemy ships could almost be seen in the distance. The sky was calm for now, but the air carried the weight of what was coming. Still, there was something different in the colony now, a quiet strength. The fear that had once filled every corner had been replaced by something new. The aliens were no longer hiding. They were preparing, and it was all because of the humans, the Deathworlders who didn't wait for perfect conditions, who didn't talk about probabilities or odds. They just acted. They didn't see themselves as heroes. They didn't speak of glory or victory. They just saw people in need, and that was enough. As night settled again over the battered planet, the human ships glowed softly under the starlight. The colony lights flickered back to life one by one. From the sky it looked like a heartbeat, faint but steady. And somewhere deep in space the Corral commanders received reports of the rebuilt colony. They dismissed it at first. A handful of survivors couldn't possibly matter. But then the data showed something else. Human signatures. That made them pause. Because even among the most ruthless species of the galaxy, there was one thing everyone knew. When humans arrived, they didn't fight clean. They didn't surrender. They didn't forget. The Corral had called this world easy prey, but now it had defenders from a death world, beings who turned pain into purpose and fear into fire. The battle hadn't even begun. But the story of what would come next was already being written in the hearts of those who refused to give up. And above that quiet planet, among the scattered stars, Earth's Deathworlders prepared to remind the galaxy what humans were capable of when someone called for help. The days passed quietly, but everyone in the colony could feel the storm building. The sky looked peaceful, yet the humans knew it wouldn't stay that way. The Corral had retreated, but they wouldn't stay gone. The humans had seen this pattern before, enemies that leave just long enough for hope to grow before they return to crush it. But this time, things were different. The humans weren't just waiting. They were preparing. The colony, once broken and silent, was now alive with movement. Every sound had meaning. The hum of machines, the clang of tools, the low rumble of engines being tested. Humans and aliens worked side by side, their differences fading in the heat of survival. A small group of humans worked on the outer ridge, strengthening a wall made of scrap metal and old mining panels. The wind there was strong, carrying fine dust that cut like sandpaper. Still, the humans didn't stop. They moved like people who had done this their whole lives, fixing, building, creating defenses out of nothing. The aliens often watched them in quiet amazement. Humans didn't seem to care about comfort or safety. If something needed doing, they did it. When one got hurt, another took his place without a word. When something broke, they fixed it before anyone could even ask how. One alien engineer finally asked, "Why do you push yourselves so hard? You act like this world is your own," a human replied while tightening a bolt. "Doesn't matter whose world it is. If we're standing on it, we protect it." That answer stayed in the alien's mind for a long time. Inside the main dome, the humans had set up a control center. They had linked their ship's computers with the colony's broken systems, creating a rough but working network. Screens flickered, showing radar, power flow, and weapon status. It was messy, full of exposed wires and improvised fixes, but it worked. The alien commander entered the room, looking around with surprise. "You built all this from our damaged tech." One of the humans looked up with a tired smile. "You'd be amazed what duct tape and stubbornness can do." The aliens didn't understand the last word, but they could feel the humor behind it. Everywhere the humans went, they brought life back to the colony. They didn't act like saviors or leaders. They acted like teammates. They taught the aliens how to handle weapons, how to move during combat, how to take cover and fight smart. "Don't aim for glory," one human told them. "Aim for survival. Winning comes later." The aliens practiced for hours, learning faster than they thought possible. At first they were clumsy and afraid, but the humans never laughed or shouted. They corrected mistakes patiently, showing rather than commanding. Slowly, the aliens began to believe in themselves again. When the night came, the humans didn't rest much. Some sat near fires, cleaning weapons, while others repaired drones or wrote reports. Their eyes carried a kind of quiet sadness, the look of people who had seen too much war but refused to let it break them. One young alien sat beside a human, watching the stars. "Your world must be terrible," he said softly. "Everyone calls it a death world," the human chuckled lightly. "Terrible? Yeah, beautiful too, though. The danger teaches you what matters. It makes you stronger, not because you want to be him, but because you have to be." He paused, staring at the stars as if remembering something far away. "You learn that fear isn't the enemy. Giving up is." The alien thought about that long after the human had gone back to work. The next day brought new tension. The scanners picked up movement in the outer orbit, faint but growing. The humans gathered around the screen, their faces calm but serious. "They're back," one of them said quietly. The alien commander's heart sank. "How many?" The humans studied the readings. "Enough to destroy this place twice over. But we're not giving it up once." Without wasting time, they began activating defenses. The colonists took positions at the bunkers and gun points. The humans moved among them, checking each weapon, giving quiet instructions, making sure everyone was ready. There was no panic this time. There was fear, yes, but not the helpless kind. It was the kind that made hearts beat faster and minds sharper. The humans had taught them something powerful, that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was action in spite of it. When the first Corral ships entered the atmosphere, the humans were already waiting. The ground cannons, built from old mining lasers, opened fire. Bright beams tore through the sky. The aliens watched in awe as several enemy fighters exploded before reaching the ground. The battle had begun. Dust rose as enemy dropships landed on the far side of the ridge. The Corral soldiers poured out, moving fast and confident. They expected the same easy victory as before. But this time they walked into a trap. The humans had studied their patterns, learned their movements, and prepared ambushes in the rocky terrain. When the first wave of enemies crossed the canyon, hidden charges exploded beneath their feet. The shockwave threw them into the air. Before they could recover, the humans opened fire from both sides. The aliens in the colony watched the humans fight, and they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Humans didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like survivors. Every move was unpredictable. They used the environment like a weapon, rolling rocks down slopes, blinding the enemy with dust, firing from impossible angles. One alien whispered, "They fight like the world itself trained them." The Corral, known across the stars for their brutality, began to fall back in confusion. They weren't used to losing control. But the humans didn't let them regroup. They pushed forward, using their small numbers like a blade, sharp, precise, and mercilessly effective. At the command center, the alien leader watched the humans' strategy unfold. "They're reckless," he said softly. Another alien beside him shook his head. "No, they're fearless." The battle raged for hours. Smoke covered the ridges and the ground shook with every blast. The humans moved tirelessly, pulling the wounded to safety, fixing broken weapons mid-fight, shouting for the aliens to hold the line. When one alien panicked and tried to retreat, a human grabbed his arm. "Don't run," he said firmly. "They want you to. Stand your ground. You're not alone anymore." The alien looked into his eyes and nodded. Together they turned back to face the enemy. By sunset, the Corral began to retreat. They had lost ships, soldiers, and pride. For the first time in their history of endless victories, they were forced to pull back from what they thought was an easy conquest. The humans didn't chase them. They simply watched, exhausted but unbroken. The battle was over. For now. As silence returned, the aliens emerged from the bunkers. They looked around at the ruined landscape and the wounded humans still standing among the smoke. Some were bleeding, some too tired to move, but their eyes still burned with life. The alien commander approached them slowly. "You knew they were stronger. You knew you could die. Why did you still fight like that?" One human took a deep breath and answered, "Because sometimes you fight not because you think you'll win, but because you refuse to lose what's left." The alien lowered his head, deeply moved. That night, the colony was quiet again. Fires burned low and the sky was full of stars. The aliens worked beside the humans, patching wounds, rebuilding, and collecting what could be saved. There was no celebration, no cheering, only silent gratitude. The aliens had seen something they could never forget. They had seen what it meant to be human. When the human leader walked through the camp, the alien stood and saluted him, not out of obligation but respect. He didn't respond with words. He just nodded and went back to repairing a weapon, as if saving an entire world was just another day's work. Later, an alien child approached him and asked softly, "Will they come back again?" He looked at the stars for a moment before replying, "Probably, but next time they'll remember what happened here. And maybe, just maybe, they'll think twice." The child smiled faintly. "Because of you?" The human shook his head. "Because of us." And as the night wind blew across the broken colony, that word, us, echoed quietly in the hearts of everyone who heard it. They were no longer just aliens and humans. They were survivors of the same fight, standing together against the dark. Far away in the galaxy, the story of the battle began to spread. Whispers of strange creatures from a death world who had come not to conquer, but to protect. And even though the war wasn't over, one truth had already taken root among the stars. When humans arrive, they don't bring peace or destruction. They bring hope, the kind that refuses to die. The smoke from the battle still floated in the air when the humans started working again. They didn't rest for long. The sky above was quiet, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the corral returned. The victory they had just won wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. The aliens could feel that too. The calm that followed wasn't peace. It was the breath between storms. The humans checked every weapon, repaired the damaged shields, and gathered what supplies were left. Their clothes were torn, faces covered in dust, but they didn't seem to care. They spoke little, working as if they were racing against something unseen. The aliens watched them and felt both awe and confusion. One of the alien engineers finally asked a human, "Why do you hurry? You already defeated them once." The human didn't stop working as he replied, "Because if they came once, they'll come again, and next time they'll bring everything they have." The alien's hands trembled a little. "You think they'll destroy us?" The human looked up and met his eyes. "Only if we stop fighting." Those simple words carried a weight no machine could measure. As hours turned into days, the colony began to change again. The humans led teams into the wreckage fields, gathering parts from fallen corral ships. They studied the enemy technology carefully, taking what could be reused. Some of the aliens were shocked to see the humans so close to the enemy's destroyed weapons. "Isn't it dangerous?" one asked nervously. A human smiled faintly. "Dangerous things are usually the most useful." Piece by piece, they began building something new. Old power cells became traps. Shattered ship armor turned into shields. Even melted fragments of enemy drones were reshaped into blades and plates. The aliens soon realized the humans had a strange gift. They could turn chaos into tools. Where others saw ruins, they saw potential. At night, the humans slept lightly, if at all. Some took turns watching the horizon. Others repaired weapons until dawn. The aliens began to join them, bringing food and water, helping where they could. In time, it no longer felt like two groups working together. It felt like one. Still, the fear never fully went away. Every time the wind changed, every flicker of light in the distant sky made hearts beat faster. The aliens whispered among themselves, wondering if this new alliance would really save them or just delay the inevitable. One evening, as the sun sank behind the rocks, a deep rumble rolled across the valley. Everyone froze. The scanners picked it up almost immediately, multiple ships entering the atmosphere. The corral were back. The humans didn't run. They moved with steady calm, each one taking position like it was routine. Their leader stood in the middle of the camp, speaking quietly to his team through the comms. "Same plan as before. Keep them guessing. Don't let them see the pattern." To the aliens, it was incredible. Even facing a much larger army, the humans spoke without panic. Their voices were low, firm, almost reassuring. The alien commander gathered his own troops and looked at the humans for guidance. "Tell us what to do," he said. The human leader simply nodded. "Hold your ground. No matter what happens, don't break the line." The sky darkened with enemy ships. Fire rained down again, shaking the earth. The aliens braced for impact as explosions lit up the horizon, but when the dust cleared, they saw the human-made shields glowing bright blue, holding firm. Cheers broke out across the colony. The first wave had been stopped. Then the real fight began. The Corral ground forces landed in large numbers this time, dozens of armored machines moving in tight formation. Their weapons cut through rock and steel, tearing paths toward the colony. The aliens' hearts filled with dread, but the humans didn't waver. They triggered the traps they had set days earlier. Explosives hidden under the sand erupted, flipping enemy vehicles into the air. Lasers, once used for mining, now cut through armor like paper. Every corner of the colony became a battlefield built by human hands. Still, the Corral kept coming. Their numbers seemed endless. The humans fought harder, calling out targets, repairing damaged cannons even under fire. One human ran into the open to reconnect a fallen power cable. The aliens shouted for him to come back, but he just waved and yelled, "If this line dies, we all do." The aliens couldn't believe such courage or madness was real. Hours passed. The battle became a blur of fire, smoke, and noise. The aliens fought alongside humans, using what they had learned. They aimed better now, moved smarter, and refused to retreat. In the middle of the chaos, the alien commander saw something that would stay in his memory forever. A human soldier stood atop a broken tower, waving a signal beacon. Enemy ships turned their cannons toward him, but he didn't move. The beacon's light flashed rapidly, signaling the rest of the fleet to open fire. Seconds later, a massive explosion tore through the enemy's side. The human was thrown to the ground, but the plan worked. The Corral line broke. The aliens shouted, surging forward with renewed energy. The tide was turning. From the command dome, the human leader watched the data streaming across the screen. His voice stayed calm as he gave orders, even when half the monitors went dark. "They're falling back," he said. "Keep the pressure on them, but don't chase too far. They'll trap you if you overextend." His tone wasn't proud or excited, it was focused, grounded, like someone who had seen too many victories turn into losses by chasing too soon. By the time the sun rose again, the Corral ships were pulling out of the atmosphere. One by one, they disappeared into the sky. The colony, though scarred and broken again, was still standing. Silence followed. Then came the sound of relief. Sobs, laughter, cheers, and exhausted sighs. The aliens looked around, unable to believe it. They had survived a second attack. And not just survived, they had fought back. As the humans walked through the wreckage, checking the wounded, the aliens stared at them with a new kind of respect. These people from the Deathworld weren't just warriors. They were protectors who refused to surrender no matter the odds. The alien commander approached the human leader, voice trembling slightly. "You saved us again," he said. "But at what cost? You've lost people. You've been injured. Why keep risking yourselves for us?" The human looked at the ground for a moment, then said quietly, "Because if we don't stand for each other, who will? On our world, we learned a long time ago, no one survives alone." There was no speech after that, no celebration. The humans simply went back to work, helping rebuild once more. But their actions spoke louder than any words could. As night fell, the aliens gathered around the fires with the humans. There was laughter this time, soft and tired but real. Someone played a small tune on a metal pipe, and for a moment it didn't feel like a war zone. It felt like family. High above, the stars shone brightly, reflecting on the damaged domes. The alien children pointed up, asking if the humans' home looked like this. One human smiled faintly. "It's bluer," he said, "but it's just as full of danger." The children giggled, not understanding how a place could be both beautiful and deadly. The humans didn't explain. They just smiled and let the laughter fill the night. Meanwhile, far away in deep space, the Corral leaders were in shock. They reviewed the battle data, trying to understand how a single small colony and a handful of humans had resisted them twice. Their commanders argued that it must have been luck or trickery, but one voice among them spoke quietly. "No, it was the humans. They fight differently. They fight like dying isn't the worst thing that can happen." The others fell silent at that. Back on the colony, the humans prepared for whatever would come next. They knew this victory would only draw more attention. But that didn't worry them. For them, this was what humanity had always done: stand where others fall, fight when others flee, and keep hope alive when everything else burns. Before resting, the human leader walked to the ridge, looking over the valley where the battle had taken place. The sky was calm again, streaked with faint colors of dawn. He breathed deeply and whispered to himself, "Let them come. We'll be ready." And down below, the aliens slept for the first time in many nights, not in fear, but in peace, knowing that the people from Earth, the so-called Deathworlders, were watching over them. They had thought humans were dangerous. Now they understood the truth. Humans were dangerous not because they loved to fight, but because they refused to give up. And somewhere in that broken colony, among the smoke and stars, a legend was beginning, one that would travel across the galaxy, telling everyone that when Earth's Deathworlders arrive, they bring not terror, but hope. The colony had started to heal. After the second wave of attacks, both humans and aliens had learned how to fight side by side. They shared food, stories, and laughter, trying to forget the noise of war that still echoed in their minds. The air was quieter now, though the signs of destruction were everywhere. Burned walls, cracked glass domes, and deep scars in the soil where explosions had hit. But the silence didn't bring comfort. Deep down, everyone knew it wouldn't last. The Corral never accepted defeat. They always came back stronger. The humans seemed to understand this more than anyone. They didn't relax. Every morning, they trained, repaired, and prepared. The aliens watched with amazement. Even after losing friends, even after days without proper rest, the humans still smiled, joked, and kept moving forward. One of the alien workers asked a human soldier while repairing a damaged vehicle, "How do you keep doing this? Aren't you tired of fighting all the time?" The human wiped sweat from his face and said, "Of course I'm tired. Everyone is. But we don't stop because we're tired. We stop when it's done." Those simple words spread around the colony. The aliens began repeating them like a small promise. We stop when it's done. As days passed, more alien families began helping with rebuilding. Children carried small tools. Elders cooked food for the workers. Humans guided them gently, teaching them how to fix machines, build shelters, and operate simple defenses. The colony slowly became stronger, not just in structure but in spirit. Still, there were signs of something coming. Human scouts noticed strange signals in the outer atmosphere. The patterns looked familiar, like the ones they had seen before the last attack. When they reported it, the human leader gathered everyone in the main dome. His face was calm but serious. "We think the Corral are preparing for another strike," he said. "But this time it's different. They've sent out a massive fleet. It's not just revenge. It's a full-scale invasion." A low murmur spread through the crowd. Fear crept into every face. The aliens turned to look at the humans, hoping for some reassurance. One of the humans spoke softly. "We've been through worse. We'll face this too, but we'll need everyone to work together again. No one gets left behind." Those words steadied the crowd. The fear didn't disappear, but it turned into determination. The next few days were tense. The colony became a place of constant motion. Ships were hidden under camouflage nets. Heavy cannons were reactivated and defensive shields were improved. The humans used every piece of metal they could find, every wire and circuit to strengthen their position. The aliens helped with everything. No one sat idle. At night, the humans sat under the stars, watching the horizon. The alien commander joined them once and asked, "Do you ever wish you had stayed on Earth, away from all this?" The human stared at the stars for a while before answering, "We didn't come here to run away. We came to help. If we leave now, this place dies. And if we stay, maybe, just maybe, it lives." The alien commander nodded quietly. "Then we stay together." The next morning, the scanners caught the first signal. Hundreds of ships, bigger, faster, stronger than before, were approaching. The Corral weren't just sending soldiers this time. They were sending everything. The alarm rang across the colony. The humans moved quickly, calm and focused. "Everyone to your stations," their leader said. "We hold them here." As the sky filled with dark shapes, the ground began to shake again. The aliens felt their hearts race, but the humans stood firm. They looked at the sky not with fear, but with a strange kind of respect, like they were greeting an old enemy they had known for too long. The battle started with a storm of fire. Explosions tore through the upper shield lines. Dust and debris covered everything. The humans shouted orders, their voices cutting through the chaos. The aliens followed every command, trusting completely. Missiles streaked through the air, meeting enemy fighters mid-flight. Ground cannons roared, shaking the valley. The humans' traps went off one after another, catching enemy walkers before they could reach the walls. But there were too many. The Krall forces kept coming. Their ships blocked out the sun. Their machines marched through fire and smoke. The colony's shields began to flicker under the pressure. In the command dome, the human leader watched the readings. The energy levels were dropping fast. "We're not going to last long like this," one of the engineers said. The leader's voice stayed steady. "Then we buy as much time as we can." He turned to the communication unit and sent a message to all humans in orbit and nearby systems. "To any Earth fleet within range, this is Colony Vega 9. We are under heavy assault. We need reinforcements immediately." The message repeated again and again, sent into the darkness of space. But there was no reply. The aliens began to panic. "What if no one comes?" one asked. The human leader looked up at the burning sky and said, "Then we fight until they do." The battle grew worse. The ground shook from constant explosions. The air was thick with smoke. Humans and aliens fought side by side, every moment pushing the corral back a little but losing ground each time. Still, they didn't stop. They refused to run. One alien soldier saw a human pull an injured comrade out of a burning trench, dragging him through fire while lasers exploded around them. When the alien rushed to help, the human shouted, "Get the line stable! Don't stop shooting!" It was madness, but it worked. Their stubbornness inspired everyone around them. Hours passed. The colony was half destroyed, but still holding. The humans had formed smaller units, fighting from every corner. The aliens followed their lead, and for a moment it seemed like they might actually survive again. Then the sky lit up. It wasn't another attack. It was light. Dozens of massive ships appeared above the clouds. The human communication officer shouted, "We're getting signals. Earth fleet inbound." "Repeat, Earth fleet inbound." The word spread through every comm channel, every headset, every heart. Cheers erupted even in the middle of the battle. The alien commander stared at the sky as the Earth fleet descended like falling stars. Massive ships broke through the clouds, firing beams of pure energy at the Chiral forces. The entire battlefield shook. The Chiral tried to regroup, but the humans from orbit didn't give them a chance. They moved in perfect formation, targeting the largest enemy ships first. One by one, the invaders began to fall. Down on the ground, the colony soldiers watched in awe. The Deathworlders had arrived. The human leader stood on the command deck watching as Earth's reinforcements filled the sky. He whispered softly, "Took you long enough." The aliens couldn't believe what they were seeing. Dozens of Earth ships fought like a storm, fast, fierce, unstoppable. The Chiral forces began to retreat, their command ships burning in the distance. The battle lasted for hours, but by the end, the sky cleared again. The Chiral were gone. Their fleet had been shattered. When the dust finally settled, the humans on the ground looked up at their rescuers. Some smiled, others cried silently. They had held the line until help came. The aliens rushed to the humans, embracing them, thanking them, crying with relief. "We thought no one would come," one of them said. The human leader simply smiled. "They always come. Humans take care of their own." The Earth fleet landed near the colony. The sight of the massive ships standing side by side with the small damaged domes was powerful. The new arrivals brought supplies, medics, and engineers. They helped repair the colony, patch the wounded, and bury the fallen with honor. That night, for the first time in weeks, there was peace. The stars shone clearly again. Fires were lit for warmth, not for war. The aliens sat with the humans and the new arrivals, sharing food and stories. One young alien asked a soldier from the fleet, "Why did you come back? You could have stayed safe on your planet." The soldier looked at him with a tired smile and said, "Because that's what humans do. When someone calls for help, we don't send just one ship. We send everyone we can." The alien nodded slowly, understanding more than words could express. The humans didn't see themselves as heroes. They just did what needed to be done. But in the eyes of the aliens, they were something far greater. They weren't just fighters. They were hope in human form. As the night deepened, the sound of quiet laughter filled the air. The war wasn't over yet, but for now the colony could breathe again. The humans had kept their promise. They had stood their ground, no matter the cost. And now, with the Earth fleet above them and the stars shining bright, everyone knew one thing for sure. If humanity stood together, no force in the galaxy could ever truly break them. The morning after the great battle was quiet, strangely quiet. The sky was still filled with smoke trails from the destroyed ships, and the ground carried the marks of fire and explosions. Yet for the first time in a long while, the air felt lighter. The war machines had gone silent, and the people, humans and aliens alike, could finally breathe again. The colony was in ruins, but it stood. The defenses were broken, the towers were half gone, and the power grid barely worked, but it was still alive. That meant something. After so much pain and fear, survival itself felt like victory. The humans began working as soon as the sun rose. They didn't rest much, not because they didn't need it, but because they couldn't. There was too much to do, wounded to treat, structures to fix, families to comfort. The Earth Fleet soldiers who had arrived the day before joined in silently. They didn't act like saviors. They worked side by side with those who had held the line before them. The aliens watched with quiet admiration. The humans moved with tired but steady hands. They shared what little food they had, repaired alien homes before their own, and treated alien wounded first. It was a strange sight for those who had once feared the so-called Deathworlders. Now they saw them differently. These weren't monsters from a dangerous planet. These were people who carried their strength like a promise. One alien elder approached a group of humans who were fixing a broken dome. "You could have left us," the elder said softly. "You could have let the fleet fight for you. Why stay here with us?" One of the humans looked up, his hand still working. "Because you stayed with us when we had nothing. That makes you family." The elder didn't know how to answer. He just nodded slowly, his eyes misty with emotion. As the hours passed, the colony began to take shape again. New walls went up. Food supplies were distributed. Children who had been hiding underground were finally brought out into the open, blinking under the sunlight. When they saw the humans walking among them, they smiled shyly. Some ran up to offer flowers. Others just stood close, as if being near them made them feel safer. The humans accepted it all with quiet humility. They didn't see themselves as heroes. They had simply done what they believed was right. In the command dome, the human leader stood before a large holographic map showing the system around them. The Corral fleet had retreated far but not disappeared. They were wounded, humiliated, but still alive. And everyone knew that meant only one thing: they would return someday. One of the Earth Fleet commanders said, "We can pursue them. Finish this now." The colony's human leader shook his head slowly. "No, let them go for now. They've learned what happens when they underestimate us. If they come again, we'll be ready, just like before." The commander frowned. "You think they'll try again?" The leader's eyes were calm but tired. "They always do, but this time, we won't be the only ones standing against them." Outside, the aliens had gathered together. They wanted to speak to the humans, all of them. Word spread quickly, and soon the open square near the landing field was full. Humans stood among the crowd, some with bandaged arms, some with soot on their faces. The alien commander stepped forward and looked around. His voice was clear but emotional. "Before the humans came, we thought our world was lost," he said. "We called for help, but we never expected what arrived. We thought they would send machines, maybe a few soldiers. Instead, they sent people who fought, bled, and stood beside us. They gave us something we had lost long ago: hope." The crowd was silent, listening carefully. The alien commander turned toward the humans. "You came from a world we once feared. We called it a death world. Now we understand why. Your world taught you how to survive, how to protect, how to fight for what matters. And now you've taught us the same." The humans didn't respond with speeches. One of them simply smiled and said, "You don't need to thank us. Just promise you'll stand for others when they need it." The alien commander nodded slowly. "We will." That small promise would later spread far beyond the colony. Other species would hear of it. How humans stood their ground when everyone else fled. How they fought for a world that wasn't even their own. And how they didn't do it for glory or power, but because it was the right thing to do. As the days turned to weeks, the Earth fleet prepared to leave. Their mission was complete, but part of them didn't want to go. Many had grown close to the aliens, forming friendships that no battle could erase. When it was time to depart, the humans who stayed behind stood on the ground waving as the great ships lifted into the sky. The engines glowed blue, lighting up the morning clouds like rising suns. An alien child tugged on one soldier's hand and asked softly, "Will you come back?" The soldier knelt down and smiled. "If you ever need us, you won't have to call twice." The child laughed and ran back to his family, waving until the ships disappeared into the sky. After the fleet left, life slowly returned to normal, or as normal as it could be after such chaos. the colony began trading again. Farmers returned to the fields. The humans who stayed became part of the community, helping rebuild schools, hospitals, and homes. The aliens welcomed them as their own. Sometimes at night they would sit together around small fires and talk about Earth. The aliens were always curious about the death world everyone spoke of. They asked what made it so dangerous. The humans always answered with a smile. It's dangerous, one would say, because everything there wants to survive. The storms, the beasts, the cold, it all fights to live. And we grew up learning to do the same. The aliens listened with fascination, realizing that was exactly what the humans had brought to them, the will to survive. No matter how bad things looked, months passed peacefully. But deep in the darkness of space, the Kiral gathered once more. Their leaders spoke of revenge and destruction. Yet among them were whispers of doubt. Reports from the survivors of the last battles had spread through their ranks. Stories about humans who stood in fire and didn't run, who fought like the universe itself depended on it. Some of the Kral commanders began to fear humanity, not because of their weapons, but because of their hearts. Back on the colony, the humans knew this wasn't the end. One day another enemy might come, maybe even something worse than the Kral. But they also knew they wouldn't face it alone anymore. They had built something much stronger than weapons or walls. They had built trust. The human leader stood on the ridge one evening, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon. The alien commander joined him, quiet as the wind. For a long time, neither spoke. Then the alien said softly, "Do you ever think about home?" The human nodded. "Every day. Do you miss it?" "Of course," he said with a small smile. "But I've learned something. Home isn't just where you're born. It's where you choose to stand." The alien smiled, understanding more than words could express. Below them, the lights of the colony glowed softly, warm, alive, and peaceful. The people were laughing somewhere. Music played from a small radio, and children chased each other through the dusty streets. It wasn't perfect. It never would be, but it was theirs. As the night grew darker, the stars appeared one by one, shining above the quiet world. The human looked up and whispered almost to himself, "If they ever come again, they'll find us ready. Not just us, everyone." The alien commander placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then they'll learn that the galaxy is no longer afraid of the dark." And together they stood there, watching the stars, two beings from different worlds, united by the fire of survival and the strength of hope. Far away, among those same stars, other worlds would soon hear the story. They would tell it again and again, the story of how a dying colony called for help and how Earth answered. They would speak of the humans who came not as conquerors, but as protectors. The Deathworlders who brought courage instead of fear. The people who refused to give up even when the universe seemed ready to end. And the story would end with the same words the humans had taught them all. We stop when it's done. Because for humanity, survival was never just about living. It was about standing together no matter how hard the fight, and that, more than anything else, was what made them truly unstoppable.